Okay, now on to part two. We're gonna get through this. All right, so let me drop that down. Bring this guy back up so I can monitor the chat again. There we go. Okay, so map generator part two for Wurm Unlimited. So we just finished the grass biome. And that is, let me switch that back. We're talking about a bunch of different stuff, but that's this setup here. 500 seed count, 200 biome size, 1 density, 40 slope, minimum height 420, because we have our dirt. Our dirt is sitting at 400, which means that like areas that are low lying, you can see a few of them here, are not getting that. Now, if this isn't good for you and you want it to start at water level, you can easily drop that the grass biome down to 400. But I figured this is going to be plenty enough. That's a lot of grass all over the map. So anything that you see that's yellow, so any of these patches here, those are grass patches. Those are rather large grass patches. So we knocked that out. So now we want to do anything that's water. Oh, and before we do that, let's switch over to the regular map so that you can see the difference. Only takes a minute. If you haven't watched part one, go over to my YouTube channel. The link on Twitch is down below in the About section. Or if you're following me on YouTube, go watch that first video first. It's a long one. It's about 2 hours. But you see me go in depth with this doggone thing and fighting to try to get the right style map layout and all that stuff. I've settled on this one. It's not perfect. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for ideal. So here's this here. So you can see, you got mountains and all that stuff. If we switch back to the biome, you'll see where the grass biomes are sitting. Compared to everything else. Come on. It's already finished. There we go. So compared to the mountains and whatnot, that's where we're at. Now, we did say, switch back to the regular map. We did say that we wanted to look at, Corbett, this is, welcome back. This is actually video 2. So we're continuing where we left off. So we're back at the regular map. We wanted to look at the topological map, see where our water levels are sitting. And I can see right here, that's kind of a steep drop off. So we should be good. But I want to double check, make sure. Okay, so what we're looking for, see this is all land right here, going around the edge. We don't really want that, but if we drop the water level, and we've already put the grass in, so we don't want to mess with too much. But if we drop the water level down to say 200, that's going to add way more land and take away a lot of the water. So if we update that, and we'll switch it back because I kind of like the way it is right now. Hopefully aren't too many super shallow areas. There you go. So 200 is kind of your baseline. So if that's where we left it, then basically everything out here would be almost an immediate drop off. And that's fine, but if you want shallows, then you want to make sure that you've got room for shallows as well. If we, I don't want to have to go through that whole nonsense again of the grass biome. So, but I mean, you can see a lot of little islands and stuff in there as well. So we're just going to put this back. In fact, we're actually going to raise it up just a touch. We're going to go 420 just to make sure that the shallows aren't super shallow. Hopefully that doesn't mess up everything too bad. We'll see what it looks like. We're probably just going to go back to 400 though. But 200 is your standard. Okay, so now we look at the edge again. We're a little bit further in. Yeah, see, that's going to make that underwater, and that's going to be really shallow. We don't want that. And I really hate the idea of having to go through that again. But you know what? I wonder if we just go ahead and do the 200, update the water. I wonder what the dropping fresh dirt is going to look like versus the biomes, because I'm hoping the biome stays intact. If not, then that's going to suck. I don't like all these little islands, but at the same time, it does give other areas for players to explore and check things out and do what they want. Um, Especially, I mean, little rinky-dink spots like that. That's literally, what is that, 5 tiles? So it's just a spot of dirt out in the middle of nowhere. That's not even enough to build on. But I would have to make it, I want to say 32 deep in order for any regular ship to be able to, the larger ships to sail over it. And I could be wrong on that one too. I don't quite remember. It's been a while since I played this game, guys. Been a while since I've had to manage and manipulate a map too. Uh, what do you think, Corbett? What what would you do in this situation? You're facing a map that you could easily make deep enough with just a simple change for the ships, but at the same time, that means that you may end up having to rescatter that biome, which takes a while, and delay the inevitable of having to put the rest of the biomes in, which are still fairly time consuming. Or you could leave it as it is and hope that the water is deep enough already. But knowing that if it isn't deep enough, you got to trench everything. What do you think? I'm kind of thinking maybe we just redo it to 200. Maybe we'll go 210. Just so that way there's shallows right next to the land. And hopefully nobody spikes himself on that one little spot. And it looks like it's under now. Now we've got a couple others over here. What about 225? Okay, that gets rid of most of the little dots. There's now a new one right there. But that's gonna have to be okay. Let's do 250. There's still a few little islands that may end up making those little dots. Hmm. Yeah, I think that's going to have to do. All right, let's go ahead and drop the dirt. And hopefully it doesn't mess up the biome. And no, I don't run reruns. I'm always, if it's a live, it's definitely live. I don't do reruns. I think that's unfair to viewers to think that something's live, but it's actually just a rerun. So the first video has been posted on YouTube. It's still processing. So later on, it'll be available. And that's the one downside of recording and then posting is it takes a while for platforms like YouTube to be able to process the video, make sure everything's good, yada yada, and then actually open it to people to be able to watch. Okay, so please tell me my biomes are still intact. I really don't want to have to deal with that grass thing again. Nope, they're not. Okay, so I gotta go back through the biome, grass. Let's see if we can drop this down to 100, and maybe we can do a couple of different passes at it. And this is, what did we set the water to 250? We don't want it 420. We want it, let's say 210. Max height 34. We want to make sure on the height map we're at 5,000. Dirt height is good. Okay, so 34 is fine for the flowers. So we're going to see if this goes a little faster by cutting down the seed count. Yeah, it's moving quite a bit faster. So we may have to do a couple of runs with this, but we'll try to get it right. We'll see what happens. Basically, I'm just looking for an overall coverage of grass, and then other spots will actually overwrite that. So get the grass layer down first, especially considering it takes the longest. And then you can add in like the tar and the sand and all that stuff. And you don't want huge patches of that either. You want tiny little patches. Just to make sure that they're scattered throughout and they're not overpowering everything. I mean, you don't want to go 10 feet from a sand patch and run into another sand patch and move another 10 feet and run into another one. They don't need to be that diverse. But at the same time, you don't want a single sand patch covering up a huge section unless you've got a specific reason for it. And that's what the paint mode's for, is you can actually set it to set the biome size to whatever you want and actually just paint in, wherever you click, and that'll become that biome in that area for whatever size you've set. And we have minimum and maximums as well. So these are growth rates beyond what you've set. So the biome size is set to 200. And lower limit of random growth, so that's outside of those biomes, would be patches of 30 with a maximum of 70. So that way you have smaller patches, you have larger patches, and it fills your world a little better. We might not have to go through a second run, depending on how this turns out, and that'll be awesome. But even, as you can see, even with the seed count of 100, it still takes a little while. So you got to be patient with this. And just kind of let it do its thing. Especially if you got an old rig like mine. Newer rigs, this is going to be screaming fast in comparison. But if this turns out okay, then we'll move on to some of the other biomes. Get those set. We've already got the ores in place, and you only have to do that the once. But here's that list again if you needed it. And keep in mind, if you generate ores and then you generate ores again, it's going to repopulate with the new count and not necessarily wipe the old count. So you may end up with a lot more ores and different types of stone and whatnot than what you anticipated. So be careful with that one. All right, updating the map. Let's see what we get. There we go. Okay, so that's not enough. But what we can't do is we can keep with the seed count 100 and we can drop this to 100 so that instead of all these large patches, you also get some smaller patches. And where's it at? So like here, that's clearly not a 200 biome, but most of them are right around that. To see that by dropping the seeds or the biome size, it's considerably faster. Now, if I brought that up to 500 and did, say, 10 seeds, it would still take quite a while. We want nice little, grass patches because that's where our trees and stuff are going to grow too. All right, see what we got this time. Usually this will update the map live, and I don't know what just happened there because I lost half the map. Let's try that again. It probably just got confused. Well, okay, let's switch over to regular map and force it to refresh completely. There we go. Now we'll go back to the biomes. Come on. There we go. So that's still not as much as I want. So if we go 1,000, which is 10 times as much, that's going to kill everything and it's going to be super slow. So we're going to keep this, we're going to drop this to 50. We're going to bring this up to 250. See what we get there. There we go. That's a lot faster. And that should put in a bunch more of the smaller ones. There we go. And that's kind of a good placement. So you got to remember, all the green is already dirt and grass. So if we go into the to the game right now, all of this area here would still be grass. These are just potential areas of flowers. So we're done with that. We can leave that alone. We don't want dirt. We don't want packed dirt. We don't want gravel, because players will add gravel as they make roads. And we're not adding mycelium because this is a PvE server. We're not doing end game items, so there won't be any altars or anything at the moment. But that's fine. We don't need any of that stuff right now. So what we want is the reeds to start with because they're in the water. And we are no longer at 390 water level. We're at 250 for the water level. So we go back to the biomes. We switch this. Actually, we want max height 235. So we're going to be a little bit below the water. We're going to go, let's do 225 for the minimum height, and we're going to reduce the biome size as well. We only want this down to about 10. We can put 150 is a good starting place. Let's start with 100 and see what we get. Around water means that it's going to be out in the water, but it's also going to kind of creep up on land if any of the land is close. And remember, the reeds can also be dug up if they're on land. It acts just as a regular dirt tile, but you can harvest the reeds. So you just want patches that are down near the water somewhere, but you don't want them taking up huge patches of land, which is what I had on my last map. So let's add those. And I'm not sure that it actually updated the map. There it goes. Okay, so all of these are out. But if we zoom in, we can see if, nope, those are just green spots. Green spots. So even on the sides over here, so that there is probably going to be reeds, but they're out. So keep that in mind if you're a GM, and you notice that you've gone all over the map, you can't find any reeds near the edge, then they didn't get added in, or they didn't make it close enough to where players can get to them. If they're out in the middle of the ocean, that's underwater. They're not going to get to those. So we'll just add another one just to make sure we've got them. And what the other thing you can do is double check the regular map. So once this updates, we'll go double check the regular map and see where the color differences are. But 10 is a good biome size for reeds. You don't want super large ones, and you want them scattered. There we go. We got a bunch more. So let's view the regular map and see where they're at. Most of these we're not going to be able to see. They're underwater. We'll be able to see the ones that are on land, and that's, or near land. So that's what's important. So we had a bunch that were over here. So we're going to zoom in over here. And that all looks pretty much just like regular grass and dirt. See, there's a few on the edges, but not on every edge. So I'm good with that. See, like there's a rather large patch right there, But basically, that's what you're looking for. Just those little brown patches kind of coming around the edge for your reeds. And there's large sections where there aren't any, and then there are large sections where there are. And that's perfectly fine. That makes players, like there's a large section of them here. So if that's an item that they're specifically looking for, they can go and hunt those down. They know they're going to be at the water's edge. There's probably a few if we find a, zoom out so we can find a lake. Where's my lake? There. Yeah, so there's even a few here at the lake. So they'll be able to find those pretty easy. Now, we want to do the same thing with the kelp. Those are the two water ones that we want to get in. So we don't have to mess with those anymore. So what did we say? 225 and 235. Let's just double check that. Biomes. So if we go back to reads, that looks right as far as the other one, but 225, 235. Okay, so we're going to go back to kelp. We don't want a seed count of 500. We want about 100. Biome size, we're going to make this 10 as well. We're going to switch back to our biomes view. And that didn't stay, so we're going to have to fix this. Otherwise, all of the kelp's going to be on the land. Okay, we're back in this view. So let's add that one. There is no specific order. This is just the order that I tend to do things in just so I can knock out certain areas. But you can add the biomes in whatever order you want. You just have to remember that whatever you add next has a chance of overriding something that you added previously. And I didn't see any updates. That doesn't mean there weren't any. So just to be certain, we're going to go ahead and add it one more time. Oh, now it's updating the map. So let's watch to see if we see anything change. And yeah, there we go. I saw a bunch of little spots pop up out here. So now we can go back to this view. Every time your map has to update, it has to re-render. So it does take a minute. There we go. And I don't see any major differences with the dirt, so we're good there. That should add some kelp around the edges as well. And again, if not, ooh, there's some cliffs for you. If not, then as a GM, you can always go in That's showing a bit through there. So that means that there is kelp and reeds around the map. But if you find that you really need some more, you can always paint the terrain and fix it manually in the game. That's an easy fix. Not like dredging the water out to make areas that just simply didn't exist. Okay, now we're going back on the land because there's literally nothing else. These are trees, bushes. So there's nothing else that we need to worry about for the water. So we go to clay. We want seed count there. 100 is about right for this size map. And we want to knock this down to about 7. So minimum growth, we want also 7. Maximum, we want to set to about 15. And we're going to add that one. And I know we're on the wrong map, but don't worry about that. We're kind of checking out both views. We're just giving it a second to fix itself. Go back into biomes. And we're going to drink some coffee. There we go. Sand should be showing up. Oh, I left the height way up there. Okay, so we're going to fix this as well. Our water level was 250. We want a few sand down by the water as well, but that just put some of it up higher. And the weird thing is I'm not really seeing any. But it's kind of hard to tell. Those might be sand patches or they might be part of the mountain. Same with these little guys here. I think those are, yeah, those are sand patches. So it did put them up. Now what we want to do is we want to bring this down, not to the water level, but just above the water level. So instead of 250, we're going to go 260 to about 300. And we're going to add a few more. That's going to put them a little closer to the water, but it's also going to spread it out over an area. So we'll have some that are closer to the water, some that are closer to the mountains, but they're still going to be spread out and small. You don't want huge sand pits. You don't want huge clay pits. You don't want huge tar pits. You want small stuff. Okay, I'm going to hope that it added a few that are closer to the water. I'm going to try to force it to update the map. Hopefully we don't have that same glitchy issue. What we're looking for is little tiny spots. So like this here. See, those are clay right there. That still seems a little sparse to me. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot there. So we're going to change the max slope just to make sure that that's not a factor. We're going to change the max slope to 35. And we're going to do another at this height level. To see if we can get a few more down closer to the water. And clay, it's okay to have a few extra around because clay is very usable. It's the tar and stuff that'll actually get in your way. I think 300 might be too narrow of a band. Let's go 400 because that didn't seem to really do anything. So that should add a few more in, and I'm hoping to see something pop in this, empty spot. But the fact is, players may have to hunt around a little bit to find deposits. There's a few right there. So there's a few deposits that are popping in. And then you can also do like say 20 at biome 15 or biome size 15. Not Jiminy Christmas, that would have been a disaster. So we'll zoom back out, and this will make it a little easier to see them if you do 15. But we don't need another 100. We're just adding a few more that are slightly larger. It's kind of like painting a picture. We want a few happy little clouds, as it were. I'm sure that's going to be fine. We'll see what happens here. Like I said, the problem is, these are clay. This is mountain. It's literally the same color. So it's hard to see. That's why I was kind of hoping to see some pop in on these green spots, because that would have been way better. But you can see a few popping in here and there, and that's okay. There's a couple right there. There's one right up there. So let's switch over to, where are we at? Yeah, let's do the peat next. We want peat from about 300, yeah, to about 800. Should be fine. And we don't want huge patches of that either, but we want them slightly bigger. So we're going to make those 20. And we'll zoom back out. Experiment with your maps. If you have a live server, even if it's just for yourself. Experiment with the maps. Add a map, check it out. If you don't like it, go back to the drawing board, add it, create a different map. I'm not seeing those pop in anywhere. So let's switch back over to the other view. Hopefully that forces the biome map to refresh itself. Yeah, you'll quickly see the different aspects that pop in, and see there's some clay right there. That's peat right there. That's more peat. So we definitely want more peat. So let's do 100 more and call that one good, because that'll add in several more that we should be able to see them, but they're not super large. Okay, now we'll switch back to the biomes view. That is actually easier to see. I just like doing the comparison between the two so I can actually see what the real map might look like. But yeah, experiment with your maps, see what you like, what you don't like, the size of the biomes that you're using. Um, I mean, realistically, you could make a map and literally put one biome on there and test it out, see if you like it. If you don't, you come back into um, WGenerator and undo that biome and change it, save it again, put it on your server again, test that out, see how that looks. If you like the way that that looks, then you move to the next one. Problem is, the undo last doesn't always work, at least not for the map. Resetting all will literally reset everything. The good news is this tends to save your numbers between sessions. So whatever number you used last, all you do is, if you added the grass and got it to right how you liked it, and then started to add the peat and found out, oh no, the peat patches are too big. You come in, you undo all, you go back to grass, you put it back in because it's going to end up the exact same way. The areas may be a little different because it is random, but the sizes will be the right what you previously had set. Um, and then you just change the size of the peat and you move to uh, whatever change you want to make. Okay, there's a few more little small spots that are adding in. That's not going to be really enough, in my opinion, for a lot of players. Those spots are going to be hoarded over and they're going to be covered really rapidly. So we don't want to change the size. We just want to add another run to add a few more seeds. And it says 100. I can't guarantee it's 100. I'm just kind of going off of what the game claims, or what the generator claims. I mean, all right, that just added another large one right there. So if we move around a little bit, there's more peat that's been added now, so that's probably good. And there are areas that there are no peat, which is good as well. That's a rather large spot. That's a rather large spot. And it's okay if you have a few that are kind of large. You can always go back in and change the terrain to grass or change it to, you know, oak trees or whatever you want. You have that ability as a GM to manipulate your map from within the game for small changes. You can do massive changes, but it's going to take a while. It's very time consuming. Okay, so after peat, um, we want to add in the sand and the tar. Sand biomes are just like the reeds, but out of the water. So we want to make those about 10. Want to drop this to 7. Want to drop this to no larger than 20. Max slope of 30 is about right. We can drop that down to actually 20 to limit some of the sand because you don't want the whole area covered in sand. Biome density 1. Seed count 200 should be about good. But it's a matter of just kind of playing with your biomes and figuring out what's going to work, what's not going to work, how many you want. The whole thing is just really how you want to design it. What's your game look like? And those are set to 600 to 1,000. So they're going to be a little higher up, and that's okay. They can be right down by the water if you want. They could be, specifically up in the mountains if you want. Your game, your way. Okay, that's a sand patch. That's a sand patch. That's a sand patch. See how they're kind of yellow? Well, we set them down to 10, which means they're going to be really small. That's a sand patch. So that does work, but that's not going to be enough for the players. Sand is used in a lot of different things. So you want to add a few more. But you don't want large patches. So as with any of these, you really want to be careful how many you add and how big you add them. With the biome size. All right, let's go back down here and see what we got. Oh, there we go. See, there's a bunch of little sand patches. There's a few scattered in throughout there. So now there's an abundance of sand. And if you wanted to, like you could take, okay, this peninsula is really good. If you want to make this a sand area, you do seed count is 0, you switch it to paint. Why seed 0? Because you're not trying to add any additional seeds, you're trying to paint. And you can do like a 50, for example. And then just come over here and say, click. I told you we were going to get into the painting part of it. And that's going to add a larger sand patch. Once the map figures out what it's going to do. Oh, maybe I mixed that one up. Seed 1. Paint mode. Oh, it's not going to because of the height. Never mind. Okay, so we want to put this at what was our water? 250, so 251. to, let's say, 375. Now we can paint there. And that should create a patch. Maybe. There we go. So that's fairly small. So let's do 100 and do it again. We're going to get a little closer to the shore just to make sure that that's not an inhibitor. And if you don't want to fight with terrain heights and all that stuff, you can easily just set this to whatever your minimum is. So the water level is 250 and set it to the maximum, which I believe is 5,000. Yeah. And then you can click anywhere on the map and it'll generate um, whatever you're trying to paint wherever you clicked. The other thing is the maximum slope. I don't want the sand to go above a 20, so I've set it to 20. But if we take this and do, say, a 250 and paint, we should see a significant increase in the size of the biome. Okay. But we told it we only wanted the density of 1. We want maximum slope of 20. We want between these two heights. So if you zoom back out, while that's a large swath of land, that's only a couple of little-ish spots of sand. If you want this whole section knocked out by sand, you click around water and you make this 10 times the size. And I'm going to do it right now just to show you, because I don't mind if this section is sand. It'll add a little character to the map itself. And that's going to spill off into the water. That didn't do what I wanted it to. Let's do 450. Try that again, because that should have created a rather large patch. I'm thinking maybe my slope is what's causing it. Let's try increasing this to 35 and doing that again, because that might be some pretty steep terrain there. So that's just something else to kind of keep an eye on, is if it's not quite working for you, it might be the way that you've set the maximum slope. Don't know why it's not. working properly. We will get this to work. One little tiny spot for 2,500. We're going to fix those numbers. We'll make them dunes. Why not? I want to show you guys that what it looks like once a large patch is in there, if it'll cooperate. Oh, minimum height what? That should be 250, not 25. What happened? I think maybe the height difference was causing an issue. And it could just be some little thing. Might not be anything particular. It's just like with scripting. One little thing could throw everything off. And that is thinking a lot. So I don't think the undo last is going to work. I don't want to reset everything. And it's still moving, but yeah, that 2,500 is going to kill me. That's going to effectively knock out a huge chunk of this area. Once it finishes, we may as well zoom back out because you'll be able to see it right up here. And again, anything that causes or that super high seed count or super high biome size is on older systems like mine, it's going to choke it. Especially if you are doing other things in the background like streaming, recording, processing other stuff. And you've got other sub programs working. And apparently this is going to take a while. Oh, this is almost worse than the grass. Okay, so once again, It's been just over an hour. I'm going to go ahead and kill the recording and stop the live stream until this finishes. And then we're going to come back to it. And I'll show you what ended up happening. But there's no sense in you guys sitting around watching and waiting for this to finish. When it's effectively a dead screen, it's just barely creeping along. So we'll let this finish, and then afterwards, I'll start a new one, and we'll go from there. But I want you still to be able to see what happens with the sand on that peninsula, and that way you can see what happens in the game. It's much easier to do it here. Yes, it's a little bit time consuming, but if you're trying to do like that entire little peninsula in sand as a GM and painting everything, man, it's rough. That's going to take a while. So I'm going to end it here, and we are going to be back in just a little bit with the end result, and we'll continue on from there with part 3.